Welcome to today's news briefing with Ethnic Media Services longtime partner, the Federal Trade Commission, the bipartisan government agency that champions the interests of American consumers, protecting us from deceptive and unfair business practices. Our focus today is on fake jobs. That's a really smashing title, fake jobs, and money-making schemes, which are proliferating across all media platforms, especially social media, from TikTok, Instagram, WeChat, in language, in English, as well as online job listing sites. These ads lure people who dream of starting their own businesses or who are just desperately in need to earn quick cash. Sometimes it's an unexpected text or email. You got the job, work from home, earn top dollar. Search online under trading or investments, and you'll be bombarded, as I was, with offers from self-proclaimed experts promising 30 to 40% returns in 1 to 3 months. Who can resist? How do you know what's a real job or a legitimate investment opportunity, and what's a scam? Our FTC speakers will guide you through the latest scams, especially those targeting ethnic communities, immigrants, people with limited English, and discuss how the FTC is fighting the scammers and sometimes winning cases, thanks to people who report the scams. Our speakers include Kathleen Daffan, Assistant Director, Division of Marketing Practices, the Federal Trade Commission. Rosario Mendez, Attorney, Consumer and Business Education, Federal Trade Commission. And if we're lucky and she's joined, a storyteller. Storytellers are sometimes reluctant to share stories of scams. This person wrote a remarkable declaration about what happened to her as a young woman eager to become a marketing maven with a luxury item, and paid money and got scammed. We ask speakers to speak slowly for our interpreters in Spanish, Mandarin, and Korean. And we ask reporters, please enter questions in the chat, which our speakers are encouraged to answer on the chat where relevant. It lets us get through more questions. We will send a video of today's briefing and bios with contact information for each speaker to all participants later today. And remember, if you do want to arrange a one-on-one interview, I don't want to say that our speakers have all the time in the world, but they are really committed to reaching your audiences with the best information possible. So contact us, contact Jessica, contact me, and we'll arrange the best scheduling time for both parties. With that, we're going to open with Kathleen Daffan. Kathleen, I may have mispronounced your last name. Is it Daffan as opposed to Daffan? I'm sorry.
No problem. I say Daffan, but I could not care less.
Okay, great. Well, the floor is yours, and we're eager to hear how you can tell us what we can tell our audiences to best protect all of us from really following the too good to be true ads coming our way.
Thank you so much, Sandy. And thanks everyone for coming today. It really is an amazing turnout. And like Sandy said, we really care deeply about reaching your audiences. So seeing a turnout like this is just wonderful from my perspective. And I'm so happy to share with you and hopefully answer your questions. And like Sandy said, we are here today because business and job scams are causing massive harm in our country. To put some numbers on that, in just the first half of 2023, the Federal Trade Commission has had more than 26,000 fraud reports about fake jobs and business opportunity scams. And people reported losses of more than $223 million. We know that is just a fraction of what's actually happening to people. And we have news and developments for you that we think it's really important for people to know and that we would love to have you share with your audiences. So I'm going to open up some slides, and these are really just to have some images that accompany what I'm saying. But I really look forward to your questions, so I will try to keep an eye on the chat as well if I can. Let me just see how to go to slideshow. First, I want to say that, hold on, having trouble. Sorry. Here we go. Hopefully that works. One important note here is that the FTC has seen that communities of color can be more affected by offers for job and money-making opportunities. Here on the screen, you can see an example of research from particular cases that we brought, showing that in some of our money-making scam cases, we saw a big impact on older Americans, and others in majority Black communities. And people can learn more about this in the FTC's report from 2021 called Serving Communities of Color. Sandy, let me just stop there. Were you trying to say something to me? You are on mute. Can you see my screen okay? Okay. You're still muted, but looks like everything's okay.
I can see it. It's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So unfortunately, job scams have been going on for some time, but we are now seeing updated tactics by scammers. And that's one reason we think it's critical to warn people right now. And I think there are a lot of different reasons for this. One is the change in how we're working. There are more people working from home since the pandemic. We're living in a global economy. We have a large gig-based economy. And as a result of all of those things, it's very normal now for us to communicate with employers online. And it's normal to do interviews online. And it's normal to work with one another online. And scammers take advantage of this. They do things now like posting fake job listings, fake recruiters reaching out to people on job sites like LinkedIn. And they're looking to collect people's personal information and even go further and hold fake interviews to lure people in. Some of them even send an official looking job offer on letterhead or an employee handbook, or they send an IT memo. These really look real, and people believe that they're going to get the job they really need. And so they interact with these folks and give personal information, and sometimes money changes hands. And it's because the scammers are really sophisticated in how they pretend to be actual employers. Just a few weeks ago, on July 17th, the FTC sued a company for deception that included job-related claims. And this is the case FTC versus Fluent. Among other things, we saw claims that people were pre-screened on behalf of particular employers, including well-known companies like UPS or FedEx. We also saw claims that a particular employer has offered an interview or has scheduled an interview with the person receiving an email. So of course, it's easy for people to believe this, and we hope that you can get the word out that if people are looking for a job anywhere, there could be scammers lurking there that look a lot like regular employers. Another scam that is very common, unfortunately, is a fake check scam related to jobs. So some people apply for a job, and as part of that process, the person who hires you will send you a check. And it may seem very normal. They may say that you need to buy equipment for your job or to purchase gift cards to send to clients, something that's believable. And what happens though is that the check is fake, and it's only after the person has spent their own money buying gift cards or buying equipment that the check will bounce and the bank will discover it was fake. This is a really common type of scam that people need to look out for. If anyone sends money and tells you that you need to send some of that money on or buy something, even if you see the deposit in your bank account, you need to take care because it could have been a fake check. And it will take a little while for the bank to find out that that check was a fake. So this one is another one that's very sophisticated. You know, these scammers are really good at what they do. Another thing that people need to watch out for is fraudulent business opportunities. So these are some common claims that we see people making out there. You know, you can be your own boss, you can make money selling in your own community, and you'll get guaranteed income. Of course, these are very attractive claims, and we see a lot of different examples that affect different communities. So this ad is from a case called Moda Latina, where the scammers were particularly targeting Latina women by running television ads and saying that they could make a lot of money selling perfumes to their community members. You can see this woman here is holding a lot of money. And unfortunately, these promises were false, and it was a scam. So people lost their hard-earned money trying to get involved in a new business opportunity, and just lost it all. The FTC was able to shut down this scam in 2021. Another thing that people who are looking for a job may find is actually not a job, but a coaching scam. Coaching scams are these kinds of scams that Sandy was mentioning, where people say, we're going to teach you how to make a lot of money. They might say you're going to make the money online, or you're going to make the money on the stock market, or you're going to make the money flipping real estate, and many other examples. These are believable examples because they follow the headlines, and we all know some people do make a lot of money through these things. But the scammers are offering a coaching opportunity that unfortunately turns out to have no value for people. So they just lose their money. These come in English, but they also come in other languages. And the image that I'm showing now is from a case that was just filed by the FTC on June 13th. This is a case called Ganadores Online, online winners. These scammers were allegedly targeting Spanish-speaking consumers, saying that they could make a lot of money either starting an online business or starting a real estate enterprise. And after we brought this lawsuit, the court temporarily halted the operation, and this case continues in litigation right now. So the key takeaway that should go with any of the warnings about what kind of scams to look out for is, please, if your readers see something out there in the market that they think is a scam, please file a report with the FTC. These are the websites where they can do it. And these reports are what we use every day in our targeting and law enforcement to try to stop these scams and make people whole wherever we can. And you don't have to actually experience something in order to report. We get a lot of very, very helpful information from community members who just see something that their neighbors are experiencing and tell us about it. And all of those can be useful to us as we are doing our work. So that's my final pitch. I know I went over the time that I meant to take there, Sandy, but now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you for now. I look forward to taking people's questions when it's the right time.
Well, if I can, as moderator, have the prerogative of asking the first couple of questions. First of all, how do scammers make money when they lure somebody in to, say, maybe send $250 and get a package? What kind of return on investment are they getting? Where do the big dollars come into all this?
Great question, Sandy. And scammers use all different kinds of business models. But some of them are that scammers may be getting people's personal information. For example, they may say, in order to apply for this job, you need to send me not only your name, address, but maybe your social security number for, direct deposit purposes or a background check. And then they can sell people's personal information to others and get money. Sandy, you're on mute. Are you responding? I was just going to continue and say that another way that people make money is they say, here's a check. Now you need to go and buy gift cards for our clients and send them out. Now the scammers are the ones actually receiving those gift cards. So they get the gift cards. They can use them to, get money very easily, very quickly. And it's hard to trace those. And so at the end of the day, they haven't really sent you a check. They're out nothing, but they're getting all of the gift cards that you sent. Similar things can happen with buying equipment. You need to buy equipment and ship it here. Well, now they have this expensive equipment and they haven't paid out anything. So there's a lot of different models. With the business opportunities and the coaching scams that I mentioned, they actually charge people sometimes just a little bit of money, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. We've seen scammers help people take out credit cards so that they can go into debt and pay the scammers tens of thousands of dollars based on promises that they're going to become millionaires and really be successful at the end of the coaching program. So as you can see, there's a whole range of different horrible business practices that the scammers use to make money.
And just one quick follow-up on that before we go, because we have a lot of questions in the chat. What is the biggest, baddest bonanza earned by scammers from job-generating fraud or business schemes? Can you think of one that really knocked it out of the park with the scammers?
So we have brought cases where the scammers, I'm thinking of a case called My Online Business Education. The scammers in just that one scheme took in more than $300 million. We've also brought cases against multi-level marketing companies that we alleged were making false promises to consumers. And we got settlements of hundreds of millions of dollars from those. So these scams are having an incredible impact on the US market and on consumers.
Great. Let's take some questions now. We'll begin with Henrietta Burrows. Can you ask your question, Henrietta?
Thanks, Cindy. if someone receives a letter by email saying that you've been hired for a job, you have an appointment, how does that scam work? And how does one know whether it's legitimate? This is connected also to Pedro's question.
Great. Thank you so much for the question. So in those cases where they're impersonating a real employer and telling you you got the job, they may be trying to get your personal information. They may have a scheme where they think they're going to actually get money from you down the line, either because you buy equipment or send gift cards or something like that. How do you tell that the person's not really the company? This is hard. And what we tell consumers is actually it takes the extra step of finding the company through your own research and reaching out to them at a phone number that you know is legitimate or an email address that you know is really the company, and confirming that they are hiring for this position and that you're communicating with the actual company, which is a lot of research to tell people to do, but that really is the safest thing these days.
So we have a question from Pedro Gratterall, who is asking very similarly. Do you want to ask your question, Pedro?
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Super nice to be here and super interesting everything that is being mentioned. The question that I had was about how you can tell when a job offer is legitimate, because there's so many ways to know that it's fake. And like one of the big things that scammers do is that they erode trust, you know? And so I was wondering like how you can tell what's real and what's not, because if you think that everything's a scam, then everything becomes scary.
Great question, Pedro. And I think it's very difficult. I mean, we shouldn't make it sound like consumers, people should just know, or it should be obvious. It absolutely is not obvious. And because the scammers are good at what they do. So it's not like looking out for typos or things like that is not going to help these days. The scammers are too sophisticated. And that's why our advice is when you are interacting with a company and talking about a potential job opportunity, to do online research. So first thing you can do is put the name of the company and words like scam, and just check to make sure that the company itself isn't known to be participating in job scams. But then other times the company may be a well-known name. I mean, in the cases that I mentioned today, they were talking about jobs at Walmart and other well-known places. And with those situations, what people need to do is search for that company so that they know they're getting the correct phone number or the correct email address to contact that company, and reaching out to them totally separate from the communications about the job, and confirming that it's a real job and that the communications are legitimate. And the reason we say to do their own research is that the scammers are smart. In their emails, they put the headquarters phone number, they put email addresses, but those are all going to be fake as well. So that's why it's really important that people not rely on anything related to the job posting or the communications, and instead go and do their own research and contact the company separately.
Great. We have a question from Floyd Galloway. Floyd, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. My question is that some of the individuals or company that you catch in a scam, are they taken to court and receiving jail time, or how does that work?
Great question. Thank you very much for that. The FTC is a civil law enforcement agency, so we have the power to go and ask the court to shut down scams, and we always work hard to try to get all of the money frozen, and where we can, return it to people. We do not have the ability to put people in jail. However, we have what's called a criminal liaison unit within the FTC, because many of these scams that we shut down are criminal operations. And so we work with our criminal law enforcers in the country very closely to try to make sure that if there's a criminal angle, they're pursuing it. And so that's an important question. Thank you.
Great.
you.
We have a question from Abu Tahir. Abu, it's great to connect with you, and thank you for joining us today.
Okay, hi, how are you, everyone? My question is there is a lot of scam going on, especially the people. Sometimes some people they call and say, "Hey, say about your connection service or any other service, we are cutting it off if you don't pay us within few minutes." So then people will say, "Okay, how I can make a payment?" And then say, "Okay, send it by jail payment." Many people they send the money by jail payment, and then they found right away it's a fraud, and they call the bank, and bank said, "Oh, we already paid, we cannot take the money back." So a lot of people they lost their money like this, and bank, always there is no cooperation from the bank. Bank say, "Okay, we already paid it, so we cannot track down who take the money." So what is the suggestion? And also another question, which is there is a new phenomenon, which is some people they send a text message, say about in my phone, and say, "Hey, are you David?" And if you say no, I'm not, then say, "Oh, you are a very friendly person. You are very friendly," and then they take all the information and everything. Is it risky, or is there any tips for them that kind of
Friendly.
text message that
Yeah.
should respond?
Thank you very much. Those are both great questions. I'll take the second one first. We are seeing a really concerning uptick in scams via text message. And so that's a great thing to spread the word about, because I think you're right. They start in many different ways. So one common one is, "Oh, there's a problem with your package delivery. Click this link." Or I'm your phone service, there's an issue, or that I'm your bank, there's an issue, click this link. And so we tell people, never click a link in a text message ever. You can reach out to the company and a number you think is correct to try to figure out what's going on. But the one you raised is also very important. A scammer might reach out and try to just start striking up a conversation. And we can see this via text or via a lot of different communication apps that people use. And what we tell people is to be very cautious, because the scammers are really good at what they do in terms of, building relationships and then working around to a point where they're trying to get your personal information or your money. So thank you for raising that. And then your first question was about payment methods, including banks. When people make a payment to a scammer and then may find out, "Oh, I realized it 2 minutes later, and yet it's already too late to get my money back," which is a problem that we see and is very frustrating. I will say that every moment counts and that people should not give up hope. Whether or not you can get money back that you just sent to a scammer really depends a lot on how people sent the money. And so we have information at the FTC's website about what to do if you paid a scammer versus with a wire transfer versus, a credit card versus a check versus, a payment app. There are different steps that you should take. And with some of them, it is possible to get your money back. In terms of overarching advice about that, Abu, one thing I would say is to suggest that people file a report right away at reportfraud.ftc.gov. We have updated our reporting system in the last several years to make it more helpful in terms of telling people the next steps to take, depending on if they paid a scammer and what type of payment mechanism they used. So that would be my number one piece of advice.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to take 3 more questions. Ask that you make the questions very short and that you give very short answers, although the answers are just wonderful. Jet Liu from World Journal. Jet, can you ask your question?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. So my question is very simple. So are there any fake job scams targeting the Asian or Chinese community? Are there any specific examples you can share with us?
That's a great question. I have heard of scams targeting the Chinese American community on certain communication apps that people frequently use within that community. So I don't have, a particular FTC case to cite to you for that. But I absolutely think that getting the word out in language about these type of scams is very important, because we know that these scams are happening in many languages all across the country. And I'm sure that they're happening in Chinese, in whatever places people are communicating with one another in Chinese. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would say, Jet, the FTC had a great press release about a scam being really proliferating on WeChat. I'm going to look back for that and we'll send you whatever examples. One more question. Actually, there are a lot of questions you'll be hopefully answering on the chat, Katie, but
Sure.
Janice Malone asks a question. Janice, can you ask your question? See, can you?
Maybe not. She's not unmuted.
I'll ask her question for her, sorry. What are some clues on an email that one should look for if it's a job offer scam? Because some of these emails look very legitimate. Are there any clues? It's a very good question.
It is a very good question. And there can be clues. There can be mistakes in, spelling or grammar. There can be clues about where the email is coming from. Is it a personal address? Or if it looks like a company address, is there actually a typo in it or some strange thing about the email address? But let me finish by saying that I don't think we can rely on that any longer, because the scammers have just gotten too sophisticated. They can mask the email address where it's coming from. They can check it and make sure it looks perfect and there are no mistakes. They can pick up images and signature blocks and make it look exactly like a legitimate email coming from the company. So it's worth looking for those signs, but you're not in the clear just because you don't see any. The really important thing is to do separate research and confirm with the company in a safe way that this is a legitimate opportunity.
Okay. And
Thank you.
last
Sure.
question, which sort of consolidates a couple of questions. Are there countries where these scams tend to originate? Are there certain countries that are involved in essentially targeting American consumers with these job generating or business fake business schemes?
It's a very interesting question. And, as I mentioned in the beginning, we live in such a global economy that, yes, there are people all over the world running these scams. And that case, my online business education that I mentioned, taking in over $300 million from US consumers. But that was a global scam. They were running that based sometimes in the Philippines, sometimes other places. And we, as a result of that, work very closely at the FTC with our Office of International Affairs. And over the years, we've worked closely with many different governments, including Indian government, many others, where there have been scammers, in different countries running scams. But also we see people right here in the US running some of these scams. So, you can't assume that just because you're sure someone's in the United States, it's legitimate either. It really is something that unfortunately we see all around the world, including right here.
Right. And finally, I'm going to read the question in the interest of time from Rico. Is there ever a risk in just reading a text from a scammer or answering a phone call without clicking any link? Is there a way that somehow that means the scammer gets information? How far can you go without risking that they'll find out information about you?
That's a great question. I am not currently aware of any risk with just reading a text, although you just want to be careful not to accidentally click something. And in terms of phone calls, though, we do suggest that if you pick up the phone and it's a robocall, for example, and you aren't expecting it, didn't give permission to receive it, just hang up. Because there are instances where scammers have been known to say, press 2 to be removed from our list. And they really aren't going to remove you from any list. They're just trying to see, is this a real phone number that works or not? And
Right.
so we do tell people don't interact with those phone calls at all. It's the best way to go. Just hang up.
Got it. And Michelle White, I didn't see your hand icon. So you get the last question of Katie, and then we'll go to Rosario.
Hello, good morning. It's not it's a question what to do, because I get several confirmation of already a purchase. It's of the theme, but it's just hey, thank you for your purchase. If you have any question, just call us 24/7 at this number. So I just delete. But
Right.
I get dishwashers, any kind of stuff.
Right. I've received those too, Michelle, and I think I understand why that works, right? Because at first I feel, oh no, I didn't purchase a dishwasher and I don't want there to be a mistake. And so you sort of want to interact with it and explain that you didn't make such a purchase. But I do think it's just a ruse by scammers to try to get you to follow up with them. That's one that I've seen as well. So thanks for raising that.
Well, thank you for being such a wonderful guest. Please stay on as we go now to Rosario Mendez, who also will be moderating for our storyteller. Welcome, Rosario.
Thank you. I was on mute and I couldn't unmute. It said the host had to unmute me. Hello, everybody. Well, I think that our storyteller had some problem and had to leave, and hopefully she'll come back. But I can tell you that what she was going to talk about was exactly the same case that Katie mentioned in her presentation, called Moda Latina, where it was a specific a scam that was advertised on Spanish language television. And it was mostly targeting Latina women to get into a job working from home, selling luxurious items. In this case, for example, this consumer, what she saw in the ad was that they were promising that she could make a lot of money selling 14 karat gold jewelry. And she got enticed by that. She told us that she had recently arrived to this country and was in a situation where she needed to make money and get a job working from home. So she answered, the ad by calling the number that was on the screen, on the TV, on the advertisement that she saw. And what happened was that a couple of days later, someone called her and told her that she had to pay $299 with a money order. They were going to send a package to her, and she had to have the money order ready. And that already is a little bit of a sign of a weird situation, right? Because if you're entering into a business or if you are buying some products, it's a little strange that they're asking you to pay with a money order. It's not a traditional way to pay for something. And then second, that when the package arrives, that's when you're going to give the money. And in addition to that, the caller also kind of threatened her. So she says that she threatened, that the man threatened her with, you better have the money ready because now you're committed to have this. So there's already also a level of intimidation already from the first phone call. What the consumer told us is that eventually when she received the package a few days later via FedEx, and she had her money order ready, when she opened the package, in fact, what she got was junk. No, the jewelry that she was expected to receive in order to sell it in her community and make some money out of it. So, of course, she tried to contact the company several times. The company said that this is another sign that is problematic in some of the cases that we see. The company said that if she really wanted to make money, that she had to pay more in order to get other types of products, when what she was expecting from the beginning were some products that were sellable, but they weren't sellable at all. So she ended up losing the money, but eventually she reported the problem to the Federal Trade Commission. So that was part of, all the reports that we got and the evidence that Katie and her team were able to gather on this case and do an investigation and eventually shut down the scam. Now, this was 3.5 years ago, I think, around 2019, so right before the pandemic. So, of course, it's been some years now. But when I spoke to this consumer recently in order to invite her to this particular event again and share her story, she remembered the story vividly because it had made such an impact, in her life and in her finances at the time. $299, at the time for her was a lot of money, and also the hope and the expectation that she was going to make money and was able to, sell these items that, completely didn't happen. So yeah, that's just one of the stories from this case, the Model Latina, that Katie had mentioned. And there's a lot of others, unfortunately. But what we always try to emphasize to people, when you're looking for a job, when you're looking for a business opportunity, make sure that you do a little bit of research. It's a good idea to go online and research the company. Put the words complaint, or in this case, she speaks Spanish, so I always say just then put the word estafa next to the name of the company and see what other people are saying about that opportunity. Most likely, if it is a scam, somebody else is already talking about it on the internet. Also, it's always a good idea to make sure that don't pay without talking to someone else. Make sure that if you want to get into a business opportunity and you think that you're going to be able to make money with this business opportunity, before you signed up, to get believe all the things that they're telling you of this business opportunity. Talk to somebody else. And when you talk to someone else, you sometimes discover maybe this is not, maybe is there something weird, we are here, maybe this is not really that good of opportunity, or maybe that other person already has heard about that type of scam and can tell you, be careful because I've heard that these things are a scam. That's why it's so important for people to talk about these things. And I know that it's very embarrassing. I'm Latina, and a lot of times in my community, people get embarrassed by accepting when they have been scammed or when they have had a kind of a problem. But the reality is that in this country, you gotta complain in order to, and report things in order to let the authorities know what's happening, like the Federal Trade Commission, because that's the way that we know how to, what's going on and what to investigate and what to, try to stop the scams that are impacting the different communities.
Rosario, a question I'd like Henrietta Burrows to ask, which is relevant to all of us. Henrietta, can you ask your question?
Thanks so much, Sandy. Rosario, what responsibility do media companies have, the television companies, the newspapers, for running false advertising from scammers? Can they be held responsible and sued for complicity or promoting false ads that's not political advertising?
Yeah, that is a good question. And maybe Katie can answer a little better than I can, but I can tell you that we have advice for media on how to screen the advertisement, and yes, the media can play a big role both in reporting, just like you guys are doing by participating in this virtual training or in this virtual briefing, and also by helping screen those advertisements when they first come in and see what kind of things is it that it raises some red flags.
In other words, we should vet the companies that are trying to advertise, here's a get-rich-quick scheme, or here's a way you can become an entrepreneur. We should do some investigation of these companies ourselves. That's your advice. Okay.
I think Katie wants to add something to that, but that definitely certainly will help. And the FTC does have some guidance to help you do that.
Katie.
Yes, and I was just going to add, Sandy, that there's a difference between a duty to do deep investigation of every advertiser, which we have never found there is. But there are certain claims that are real red flags. There are red flag claims when it comes to weight loss. We can all understand that. If something says you're going to, lose 50 pounds in a week without doing anything different, just on its face, there's a problem with that claim. And the FTC has talked about that before. Similarly, with income claims, if there's a claim that you're going to make thousands of dollars in a month without a lot of work, I, as an advertiser, would feel very concerned about running that ad and whether it might actually end up injuring people down the line. And I just also wanted to add on to Rosario's good response and say that the FTC is always looking for ways to not just go after individual scammers, but to look at the whole marketplace and see who is helping those scammers get to the public. Who is helping the scammers get money from people, and how can we hold them responsible for some of the harm that's happening? And that is why we've sued a lot of payment processors. We've sued Western Union and MoneyGram. We've sued voice over internet protocol, like phone companies that are carrying illegal calls. And there are a lot of other examples like that. So that kind of strategic thinking is really important when we're trying to solve these problems.
We have a recommendation from Floyd Galloway for FTC. Do you want to share that recommendation, Floyd?
Yes, thank you, Sandy. Yeah, I was wondering if the liaison that the FTC has with the criminal organization, that they could send out press releases to, say, ethnic media organizations, so they can publish those, so the communities of color, especially those that affect communities of color, will know that someone is being held accountable, and also that it might deter, hopefully, maybe, some of those scammers.
Lloyd, I love this suggestion, and it was funny. I was just typing up a response in the chat at the same time. So I just posted that in case, but I completely agree with you. And one more thing to add there is that in addition to deterring people and letting communities know that we're working for them, I think it's also helpful in encouraging communities to file reports with us, because we do research and we see that we get fewer reports from certain communities, including the Black community, the Latino, majority Black communities and majority Latino communities. And this is a real concern for us because we want to protect every community. So everything we can do to make sure that people know we're working for them, I think also encourages people to send their reports to us. And then it kind of becomes a cycle where we can do our jobs much better.
Great. Sunita Sarabji, you have an important question. Can you unmute?
Yes, thank you, Sandy. I think all of us have seen these ads that pop up when we're playing games on our laptops.
Playing games, did you say? Playing games? That's what you're on
our laptops, promising money just for playing the games. So obviously a scam. How does that work, and how do we avoid that?
I can say one thing about that, which is that unfortunately, there's a lot of promises online where, it doesn't make a lot of sense how you could get money for just doing this or just doing that. A lot of times what's happening is that we end up providing our personal information and sometimes even getting tricked or trapped in a kind of situation that we don't want to be in. Mm-hmm. This is something that the Federal Trade Commission is really worried about. And one term that people use for it is dark patterns. That's when people use manipulative designs online to make people do things that they really weren't intending to do. And so for me, and when I'm talking to my kids, I encourage them not to do a lot of things for free online unless you really understand how it works for you, because a lot of times it doesn't, and there could be tricky ways that that the company offering that supposedly free thing is benefiting from the interaction.
Thank you.
So that's a really good thing to raise.
Great. Okay, Mark Hedin has a question. Mark, did you want to ask your question?
I was just wondering about shutting down notifications. I try to keep my own privacy settings on with high barriers, but of course things still get through. And perhaps there are some recommendations for us about how to go about that.
Great question. Yeah.
Yes, and Mark, I can also look on ftc.gov and try to point you to the very best place to start for ways to protect yourself online. But we have a whole division of privacy and identity protection that works on those issues and has a lot of wonderful guidance for people about how to protect themselves and their families with whatever they're doing online. So I will look for the best link and put that in the chat.
Thank you.
Terrific. And final question from Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon, can you ask your question?
Oh, yes. Good day. Yeah, the question is, when the FTC receive a report, how long does it take them to close down that scammer, for example, the websites or whatever operation that they're conducting?
I'm so glad that you asked that question. And I think this is a really important thing for us to emphasize, and I probably should have already said it when I put up the reportfraud.ftc.gov link, which is that we do not, and we are not able to respond individually to every report that is filed with us. When we do open an investigation, we rely on those reports, we call those consumers, they can be witnesses in our cases, and it can take a year or multiple years before the case is actually filed and finished, and then money can go back to the people who lost it. But the other thing that happens sometimes is that somebody files a report and they don't even see what happened with it after that, except that we say thank you and we send a few pieces of important information. And the reason for that is that we get tens of thousands of reports every week. And so we are not set up or able to respond to each and every one and open a case and start working on it. Instead, we use the reports to drive our law enforcement work by looking at trends, by figuring out, what's new, by doing policy work and doing law enforcement and doing education. And the other important thing about the reports is that they don't only go to the Federal Trade Commission, they're available to all of our law enforcement partners. So hundreds of other law enforcement agencies have access to the reports. And so they are also able to take action against what people have reported.
Okay, now I'm going to ask each of our speakers, Rosario and Katie, a very trick question. But first, I want to conclude by recommending highly that all the media on our call today who have not done so already subscribe to ftc.gov/consumer alerts. There are wonderful reports and stories that are available to all our media to reprint or rebroadcast that highlight the latest kind of trends or examples in scams. And I've really become addicted to clicking on the consumer alerts. It comes under consumer alert, so I didn't always recognize it as an FTC tag, but it is indeed your window into what the FTC is seeing on consumer fraud. Now, the trick question, all of us have to write headlines. What is your headline for today's briefing? What would you like to see be the headline? And we'll start with you, Katie.
If you're looking for a job, scammers are looking for you. Do your research and beware.
Very good. Well done.
I don't write headlines for a reason, people. Sorry.
But we get the point. It's very good.
That was good.
And Rosario, your turn.
My headline is, if you see something reported, even if you didn't experience the scam yourself, if you hear from somebody else that they had experienced a scam, if you see something that seems like a scam to you or a bad practice that is impacting your community, report it to us. It's so important to do that so that we can know what's going on.
Well, I have to say, I wouldn't offer you both jobs as headline writers, but I would certainly offer you an invitation to come back again. You were wonderful presenters. We truly enjoyed the last hour. On behalf of all our media colleagues, thank you to the FTC for reaching out and wanting to inform and really educate the audiences we serve through us. We hope we can do a good job relaying this very good information. Our conference is closed. Thank you so much.